right, mathematicians, ready for math lesson number 21. Zooming through here. All right, so we learned about area last time. And we learned that area is the length times the width of a rectangle, or you could count the squares that a rectangle is made up of. Okay, so what if I have this square here, and then I cut it in half, and I only want this part? How would I know what the surface area of the part that I shaded in is? Well, pretty obvious, right? It's half of whatever the area of that square was. So I could count up the different halves, these little triangles here, and for every two of those little triangles that I find, I could put them together imaginarily, and that would be the same thing as one square. So I could count the area in half squares as well. Okay? But what if I don't have a square where the sides are the same length? What if I've got a rectangle? And you'll notice in your math book, sometimes they put these little dots in there to show you how to count the sides of our rectangle. So let's say we've got this rectangle here, and we don't have all of it. We only have this one side. All right, well, we still know that what I have here is half of whatever the area of that rectangle was. Okay, well, we know how to find the area of a rectangle. All we need to do is figure out the length of the rectangle and multiply it by the width of a rectangle. Okay, well, this side, that's pretty easy. That side's 2 squares. And this way is 3 squares. So the area of the whole rectangle would be 2 times 3. And then we're going to divide it by 2. So we can show that in math a couple of different ways. Sorry, that looks a bit more like adding, doesn't it? Okay, so I've got 2 times 3, and then I want to divide it by 2. I can group the 2 times the 3 together in brackets, and then use one of these kind of dividing signs to say then I'm going to divide it by 2. Okay, so 2 times 3 is 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. So the area of this half rectangle would be 3 squares. Oh, that's disappearing. 3 squares. Okay, the other way I can write that sneaky divided by 2 is I can use a fraction. So one of those little known things is that the dividing line in a fraction really means divided. So if I have 2 times 3, or 6, and then over 2, it's the same thing as saying 6 divided by 2. And we know in the world of improper fractions, I can divide the top by the bottom, and that would get me 3. And then again, we just put the units on the end, and here we're talking about squares. Okay, so either of those are ways that you can show it. All right, what if the rectangle you have, or the shape that you have, is not all half rectangles or whole rectangles? What if some of it is a half a rectangle and some of it is a whole rectangle? Well, no problem. All we have to do is cut it up, but then remember to add the area back together to figure out how much it is. Right? So we can chop this guy up here. So we have this half a rectangle here. So the original rectangle would be 1 square times 2 squares. 1 times 2 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So this would be 1 square worth of area. right? And then this side would be 1 square times 1, 2, 3 squares. So 1 times 3 is 3. So we'd have 1 square plus 3 squares. So the area in total would be 4 squares. All right, hopefully that's all pretty smooth sailing. What if we get a shape that looks like this? Well, you might be thinking, how the heck am I going to figure out what the area of this shape might be? But what we're going to do is just the same as we did last time. We're going to cut it up into bits that we know. So they've kindly given us these nice little dots in the background. So we can use those dots to figure out where the squares would go, or the square lines anyway. So that would be one of our rectangles. There. Okay, so what we're left with, we've got 4 different areas here. Area 1, Area 2, Area 3, Area 4. Okay. So Area 1, we know that it's going to be half of the area of this rectangle. And this rectangle has 2 along that side. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 along this side. So it would be 2 times 5, and then we're going to divide all of that by 2. So that's going to be the same thing, 2 times 5. 2 groups of 5 is 10, and then we're going to divide it by 2. Okay, 10 divided by 2 is 5. So area 1 is 5 squares. Gotta remember the units. Okay, what about, oh, that looks kind of like, there we go, we'll give this a fancy one. Okay, area 2, oh, that's a bit close, isn't it? Okay, area 2, all right, one side of the square is 1, one side of the square is 1, and then we're going to divide that in half because it's a triangle. Okay, 1 times 1 is 1. Oh, look at that. We've got half a square. Which, if we are thinking in terms of decimals, 1/2 is the same thing as 0.5. Okay, so we've got 0.5 squares. Okay, area 3. Ah, just a plain old rectangle. I love it. Okay, so we've got 2 this direction, and 1, 2, 3, 4 that direction. So 2 times 4. Hope you're all yelling, 8, Miss Hughes. So the area of number 3 would be 8 squares. Look at that, we're almost finished. And the last part that we chopped it up into, area 4, we've got 2 this direction. And then we've got 1, 2, 3, 4 that direction. But we're going to divide it all by 2 because we only have half of it. Okay, so what we really have is 8 divided by 2. And 8 divided by 2 is 4 squares. Okay, so now we know the area of each of those different segments, but the total area is going to be equal to area 1 plus area 2 plus area 3 plus area 4, right? So we have to add them all up to figure out what the total area is. So we've got 5 plus 0.5 plus 8 plus 4. Okay, I'm looking to see if there's an easy way of doing this. 5 plus 4 is 9. 9 plus 8 would be 17. 17 plus 0.5 would be 17.5. And then we have to make sure we put the units on there. And in this case, we're talking about squares. They haven't told us whether they're centimeter squares or millimeter squares or whatever other kind of squares. So we're just going to write the word squares in there. Okay, so don't let the curveballs they throw you in the book get you down. Just remember, you can chop it up into smaller pieces that you know what to do. Okay, so I think that means it is time for this lesson's math pages. Oops. All right, if you have a green book, you are going to do page 279, 280, 281. If you have a blue book, you're going to do page 289 and 290. Okay, good luck. Happy mathing!